This day 816, the Arukh HaShulchan Yomi. If you'd like to sponsor upcoming shir or more, the Arukh HaShulchan Yomi, please come me directly. Be greatly appreciated. They were doing Siman Tuf Kuf Yud Beis Vav to Tuf Kuf Yud Gimel. Gimel. Tuf Kuf Yud Beis Vav, right? Yeah. V'yesh Levin B'zeh Sheitan Shabdo Shiv Chosim B'Torem Lechol Yimo. That which you've permitted that a person's servants can eat with him. Echitanu. How do we allow this? For Rebech Reach Shlabos B'Shalom, we're definitely going to add for them. V'im Nomad the Bosa Kteira Mutzal Habos Im Neshvim Mispashal Yofer. Going to say that in the same pot you can add more because it improves the taste. When the pot is full, as we wrote previously in Ketanat here, that's also allowed to biting a non-Jew. We are baby sure we add more, but also there in the same pot. But the truth is about Zmona, Chayshinon, Shema Yarbebi Shvilo, Bikdera Cheres. You're biting him specifically, we're afraid you're going to add on in a different pot. Because you want to honor him, you're going to make him additional or different luxuries, delicacies. We're not concerned that that's going to happen with your servant. So then Ramah means when he says you can add on to that pot which you're cooking for yourself. For any other non-Jew, it's also no matter what it and quote what he means to say is like we're saying. The Mishnah Berurah says that's only for the slave, for the servants. Same time, but to add afterwards meat to the pot is also, unless you have other food, which anyway you could have used in order to satisfy them. The long brackets here. There are some people allow adding for non-Jew in the same pot, and some forbid it. I'm going to says they're both true. They mutter. So definitely mutter to add in the same pot. Become usher, but nevertheless, but a VIP, it's also Shema Yarbe because they might come to also add in another pot. Bazel Basmara, and that's when you're inviting a VIP. Avlo your household servants. That's what Magen Avram means as well. That's possible to satisfy them in some other way. Even though Mishnah Berurah brings that down, the Arukh HaShulchan says it's not relevant here. As we mentioned earlier, that if he comes on his own and you give it to him, that's okay. But to invite him, then that's not okay when he comes. That's anyway when he comes a long time before having fixing the suit because they're afraid. Oops, you're going to add on more stuff for him because you have extra time, obviously, to do it. If it's immediately for the Suda, it's okay. As on the previous Sif, the Ayin of Rambam. Rambam writes, Perakav Dinu Dalit. A dough which is half belongs to Jew and half belongs to non-Jew. Also, to bake him because you can divide up the dough. Soldiers who gave Jews flour to make for them bread on Yontif. If were the Jew to give one of these loaves to a child, they would be okay with it. You're allowed to bake for the Yontif. So call pass because each and every loaf of bread is suitable for the child. That is in the Gemara. For Rashi, Piresh, Rashi says it seems that these two halachas contradict each other. One about the dough, half Jew, half Goy, and the one about the cooking for the soldiers. The Kamen Avshalom Mifagino also. We see because if you can separate off, it's also so to do the cooking for non-Jew. So if you can separate off for a child, it's also to do the rest of the cooking. That's because of Shane Tosin. It's not a contradiction. The bees of Chetzer should so shapi yachol lachalko kol mafia with the dough, which happens to you can divide up before the baking. But with the soldiers, where the blood belongs to them, Eve shall Yisrael, Lachlok, Kodam Mafia. You can divide up before baking. Lo Yidnu Lo, they won't allow him. Rak Achar Fia, only after they bake. Look after when you give it to the child, they're not makbid. They have to bake all the bread. So much because of the part which eventually the Jew is going to eat. So Rambam is also beginning. The Rambam, Shekosar Shneidim, wrote both halachos. As far as the Rambam Magid Mishnah. And Mishnah Berurah writes, and claims to say that if the Jew gives them the flour, because the government requires to do so, and but the Jew is not allowed to bake from the flour a loaf of bread for a child unless he first bakes for everybody, all the soldiers. So same principles involved. It doesn't matter where the flour comes from. Mishnah says some Achronim wrote that it's not permitted unless you actually give a child to eat a loaf, and not that you could give a child to eat. Ches. This argument Shimon Levi the Omar aim is Zamnis Ayini who to be Yontif. You can't invite a non-Jew and Yontif. Shema your Bevi Shlukas might add for him. Peirush Rashi Barif the plea of Rabbi Shimon Levi Aladin the Bnei Chayil Shis Bar. They argue in the halacha of the soldiers. The Chayil two possible emes the Bnei Chayil Yisr. So it says that we can't bake for the soldiers. Ayin Sham. Ram Pasuk Shnei Dinim. Ram Pasuk both halachas. The Gam Arabic scheme on the Ram Arabic agrees with him. Unless ain't a demon, it's not analogous. The Zimun ain't Yehudi inviting a non-Jew. That's like the dough which belongs to the Jew, which can divide up before the process. Also, when you invite, you can cook his portion separately. As opposed to soldiers, where you can't give to the child until you bake all the bread. Either Ram not have the Girsa Gemara that Shimon Levi argues, or of course, he is a Girsa and a different interpretation. I guess the Maggid Mishnah suggested one. Some of the rabbis wrote the Gam Arif Mo the Vizet. Arif also concedes this point. He says the soldiers, the Jews could have taken it before the baking, and that's, I guess, Shimon Levi argues and says it's could take before the baking. It would be they can't take after the baking. Avatur ufisa pligi ladina, but according to this, not machlokas and halacha, because depends whether you can take before or after. Avatulas v'yochein is not this whole way. Shkash yeshim zeh machlokes and Shem writes as machlokes. Shimon Levi and the case of the soldiers. Rabbi it says to see base kusas and karambam v'chein halacha that you can actually bake for the soldiers as long as you can give one to a child. Mishnah Berurah says in the name of the Taj, you should not rely on this kula of giving a bread to the child unless it's a shas chak, which I assume if the soldiers are coming quarter by you, it's probably a big shas chak. Test yeshim shom those who say the zeshi time litin la'avadim u'shvachos that you're allowed to give to the servant shemali go sukter when you fill the same pot. Zel bebishla, that's by cooking. I have a pas, but by bread also laharbas you shouldn't pass. You can't add bread for them, betanu to the oven. Nachasim logam in the atzma. Each love is zol malacha. This brings down here from the Shabura that if you can appease them with other things, that's okay. I guess it means legally you could appease them with other things. You can make them bread because the bread's not necessarily for them, but it's for you. Something along those lines. It says, according to that which explained earlier in Taf Kuv Zayin, Sifta Zayin, you can't be makel in our ovens only a satzara because our ovens don't necessarily bake bread better with more loaves. Okay, back to Arukh HaShulchan. It says that each loaf has his own malacha. Tough kuf gimel. Yeshlu ben bishla fiyah. There's a difference between cooking and baking. Mitam zeh. So this is the reason. And shum. Ve'echlam elam mishira pasha falatzol. And shall only give him to eat from the leftover bread which he made for himself. Akfan is well sham da pirov gam anachlu fi me'erev yontif. But it says there that we said that we usually bake from before yontif. Because Rabbeinu Ramav Sifat Yisrael Ofer b'tanur sheni Yehudi, Jews baking in a non-Jew's oven. He's got to pay him with a loaf of bread. Don't designate one before you bake it. So that bread you're going to give him. You can't overpass the bishvilo. So then you're baking that specific loaf for him. Eliof, it's time you should bake generically. And give him afterwards one of them. Upashatu says Arukh HaShulchan, that is the dover pashat. You would also have first l'bashal b'shul behema. You're not allowed to bake or cook for an animal. Where it says it's also any other chayiv of, even those who are required to feed. D'chsiv, it's a b'yontiv. Now I do bake for an animal b'yontiv. See, lachem below lebhema, for you and not for animals. Came pasko rif, Rambam, Rosh. They all pass in this way. Batur v'shulchan aruch and Tur shulchan as well. Bro poskim, most poskim. Okay, Amshi Ish Paskim on the Matir Gemara, even though they're selling more in Rav Yah, who Paskim Lehetzer, ain't a look it's not a look. If you have to warn women, not to heat stuff on yonder for the animals. Moni Sparts is bifnei Eder. Sorry, I wrote that wrong. Moni Sparts is this says he come very much lax or breached. Because women don't know it's the halacha. Or the Shem like we saw and we heard. And therefore you have to warn them. And they can do it in a way which is mutter. Heat up water for washing dishes. Then after they wash the dishes, give them that water to the animals. And actually he goes on, he's even more lenient. He says you can add on in that pot for the animals. No, in a pot you're cooking for yourself. You can add on for animals. Doesn't matter if you have something else, could be an animal or not. At that same pot, you're allowed to add. And Mishabur says, even for those who are not required to feed. Mishabur says that if it's another pot, it's also even if you could give them something else to eat. I guess you could have used this for yourself, obviously, not cooking dog food. Because then that wouldn't make sense. Okay? Just learn now cook for an animal, can't carry for it through Rishus Rabim. But through a carmelist, an area which has no air, but it's not which is right, so allowed to carry. The Shabbat says no, you're not allowed to take from even from Rishus Rabim to a carmelist. Okay, but it has to be from Rishus to a carmelist. Seems like he doesn't argue. But, and he says to a non-Jew, it's mutter even through our Rishus Rabim. This means Rishus Rabim, which is not necessarily Rishus Rabim. Anyway, Arukh HaShulchan says their carmelist is mutter. We're not marking by Hotzah. The Rabbanan came to the Yontif Hotzah the Gamre. Since really on Yontif Hotzah is completely mutter, like we wrote several times. You can't mix the feed for the birds. Let's make a shini. Mutter taltam is not allowed to take food with eating and put in front of them. The Shabbos also mutter if you're required to feed them. Something which is suitable for them to eat. And Eroi, it's not suitable for them to eat. Then I guess it is muktzah. Even though you could make them suitable to eat. I know him muktzah. So not carry animal feed when they can only eat it by day of chak. And even though we're makel and hotzah by carmelist, but not by muktzah. The botzai kill because hotzah they were lenient on yontif. Okay, Tafyud Gimel. Din beitza shenol b'yontif. Halacha beitza which is laid on yontif. Aleph beitza shenol b'yontif. Leg which is an egg which is laid on yontif. Also legal by now to touch it. And tatla meaning to move it. You're allowed to shmuksa, like we said, the comical never has beitza, she agula, since an egg is round. The giyasa, when you touch it, how to tula, it's going to wobble. The Yev Shalish it's not possible, it's not going to wobble. Sesh Kosar Rabbi Ramah B'Sib Al Hach, the Asli Gaba, the Haino Tatla. That's what Ramah wrote, that which you not allowed to touch it, meaning you're not allowed to move it. Going to Yasa Abi Tula, because touching it becomes the moving it. Yesha Shiv in the Kamanos Lamar, the Dafka Tiltula, so I'm the Gimutter. Those who understood that he means to say it only Tiltula also, but touching his mutter, being sure of. And asked on this Ramah, that's the Taz. And okay, it's not. That's not the case. Yesh is where the guy in the gear below tiltul imu l'tzarach muktzah aser. For those who hold that even touching, if it without moving, if it's the purpose of the muktzah aser, as Barba Zeb and Simon Shinyud ayin sham. The Shabura says we are matir that. And by an egg, it's the wobbling issue. Beis kekemach aser ligaba. It's not allowed to touch it. Koshkesh less ochla. We're still not allowed to eat it. Kashing Mishnah Reish Beitza, the Beitza should not be on the little teachel. Egg laying ought to not be eaten. But time in the also reading has not be by time to go somewhere else got him. Obviously by a hen, which is supposed to lay eggs to raise its chicks. Having muktzah v'nolat. This egg is muktzah because and nolat because it was till now it was part of a hen, which is not designated for eating on Yom Tov. Even if it came from a hen, which is designated for eating, then a muktzah, so it's not muktzah because it came from somewhere where it could be eaten. Also mitam never has also different reasons. It seems the says share of you. They must prepare with that which they bring. The Shina, we expound this chol mechin Shabbos, a week they can prepare for Shabbos, chol mechin Yontav, and a week they can prepare for Yontav. And Yontav mechin Shabbos, Yontav cannot prepare for Shabbos, and Shabbos mechin Yontav, nor Shabbos for Yontav. Kin Rabban Chol Beitza no lettuce hayom. And Chazal have a understanding that any egg which is laid today, Nigmar Maso, it's finished yesterday. If he's Shabbos Yontav, so that's the case if Shabbos Yontav come juxtapose one another. If know the Shabbos Achar Yontav, and the egg was laid on Shabbos after Yontav, or Yontav Achar Shabbos, or Yontav after Shabbos. Hechin Shabbos Yontav, Yontav Shabbos. And Yontav Erev Shabbos, and Shabbos Yontav. Basura Beitza Midaraisa, the egg is also Midaraisa, Mishum Osir Achana. The rabbi it's called. Okay, goes to Chazal, Kol Yontav, Mishum Yontav Achar Shabbos. So Chazal made a blanket gzera. On every Yontav, it's also to use the egg, lest you come to use the egg which is laid on a Yontav after Shabbos. But okay, I'll call Shabbos, you also have to every Shabbos. Mishum Shabbos Achar Yontav. Shabbos which comes after Yontav. Mele came to the Surah, it's also to eat, also but tiltul. Now let's move it. Mandi say muktzah Yontav. When people told the muktzah Yontav, called the Rosh Hashanah Yontav. I have muktzah. And it's not true for that Yontav is muktzah. In the brackets he says here, whenever I'm self-siv kanav because the time he used to tul mishum rashal mishum lo plug. So the reason how to move it is because of low plug. Exactly why? That's what Rosh says. Sorry, lama tzvaklezer. What's up to why isn't he low plug? Seems tough kufta as well because about smoking varenu. You will like we just wrote. Mush kosa maxi is a shekels. You can't eat it. You can't move it. Gimel. So according to this comes after Yontav Achar Shabbos, Shabbos for Yontav. If it were a case of Yontav comes after Shabbos, Shabbos comes after Yontav, Yontav comes after Shabbos, Shabbos comes after Yontav. It's a Minatorah. This is the rice of it. Stam Shabbos Yontav, but a regular Shabbos Yontav. This is the Rabbanah Mishum Gzera. This is the Rabbanah because of the Gzera. Which time new. If he's you can't ask there if that's the case. Can basically know the Shabbos Yontav, an egg which is laid on Shabbos Yontav. Lo te'achol macher b'yom chol. We can eat the next day on a weekday. The Shabbos Yontav v'chin l'chol, because then it comes out the Shabbos Yontav prepared for the weekday. In kamarto havi achana, because if it's being completed is achana, koshken oladas, so certainly it's being laid. I've laid the shade. That's not a question. The embassy the oladas lav achana. It's being laid. It's not achana. Right? Davar and evidence for this is located. That's not. That word and not fact. Beit Yisrael b'yontav kodem Shabbos, an egg which is laid on Yontav before Shabbos. Titzah b'Shabbos will be also on Shabbos. Yishum achana, because it's laying on the day before was achana. L'matzina came by Gemara. He hadn't found such a thing in Gemara. El mishum t'gudusha achasen, unless it's an issue one kedusha. Linya beitza. Not because of achana, which would be a deraisa. It's only because it's the rabbanon of kedusha achas by Rosh Hashanah, but not by in and of itself because of achana. And so to an egg which is laid on Shabbos for Yontif, it's not also Yontif because of achana deraisa, mishum kedusha achas, but rather because one kedusha. The time of the milsa, I don't know, one kedusha of Shabbos and Yontif. I think for this purpose, when it says Shabbos Rosh Hashanah, for this purpose, it's this purpose more of the Yom Shabbos relationships are kedusha achas. Maybe we'll come back to that later on. The time is achana lo mikre rak masha brianis haves bolam. Achana is only called the ex nihilo effect, not quite, but when it comes into existence in the world. Below masha yotzol not which then entered the world. So you got me korais okay because before it exited the mother, the hen it was also an egg. Any egg which is laid today, it was fully formed, and Yesh Mi'ayin status was yesterday, and he's going to continue with that in Sif Daled, which we'll see in Hashem tomorrow.